You don't stay up late because you can't fall asleep. You stay up late because during the day, your life didn't feel like it belonged to you. And no, the most dangerous addiction today isn't your phone. It's that urge to stay awake, even when your body is begging for sleep. This isn't just anxiety. There's something deeper happening. This phenomenon has a name: Revenge Bedtime Procrastination. It happens when your day doesn't feel like yours, and your brain tries to reclaim freedom by stealing hours from the night, stealing rest, stealing recovery. The problem is that rebellion always sends you the bill the next day. Your memory drops, your mood crashes, your anxiety rises. You're not broken, you're not lazy, you're exhausted. It's that moment when you know you should go to sleep, but you choose to stay awake on purpose. Endless scrolling, videos, games, series, even though you have to wake up early tomorrow. Not because you can't sleep, but because you don't want the day to end. Because you never felt like you had time for yourself. Because you're mentally drained, not just physically tired. And in that state of stress, your brain focuses on one single thought. This is the only time that's mine. Don't take it away from me. And no, this isn't fixed by saying, I'll just go to bed earlier. It's fixed before that. But how do you fix it? Today you're going to understand what you can do to face this, to overcome it, and to start becoming the best version of yourself. But first, you need to understand what's actually happening to you. In psychology, this has a name, and it's not insomnia. It's not lack of sleep. It's not that you can't sleep. It's called Revenge Bedtime Procrastination. It describes the conscious act of delaying sleep, not because the body can't rest, but because the mind refuses to let go of the day. It's a form of compensation. When during the day you didn't feel control, you didn't feel choice, you didn't feel like you had time of your own, the night becomes the only space that feels free. This isn't rest, it's resistance. And even though the term became popular only a few years ago, this behavior has been studied for much longer. Psychology measures it as sleep procrastination, delaying bedtime, even when you know it's going to harm you. Because this isn't about ignorance, it's about decision. And that decision almost never starts at night. It starts in a day that didn't feel like it was yours. Scientific backing. This isn't just a nice-sounding idea. Psychology studies it, and it measures it. There's a tool called the Bedtime Procrastination Scale. It doesn't measure insomnia. It doesn't measure sleep disorders. It measures something different. It measures whether you consciously choose to go to sleep later, even when you know it will affect you the next day. And the results are clear. The people who procrastinate sleep the most aren't the ones who know the least about rest. And they're not the ones with the most energy. They're the ones who feel the least control over their day and have lower self-regulation. In other words, it's not that they can't sleep, it's that they don't want to let go of the only moment that feels like it belongs to them. Research shows this behavior is associated with poor sleep quality, lower cognitive performance, more irritability, and higher levels of stress and anxiety. That's why the exhaustion doesn't disappear after just one good night of sleep. Because the problem isn't one bad night, it's a pattern. And science agrees on one key point. This doesn't start in bed. It starts much earlier, in how you live your waking hours. What this really means for you. Staying up late isn't rest. It's rebellion. You're not enjoying the night. You're resisting the day you had. It's your quiet way of saying, today wasn't mine. At least this part is. That's why it doesn't feel like physical tiredness. It feels like mental wear and tear. Because you're not fighting sleep. You're fighting the feeling that you lived on autopilot. Night becomes the only space where no one demands anything from you. No one rushes you. No one decides for you. But that freedom is fake. Because every hour you steal from the night, the morning takes it back. With less focus, with less patience, with more anxiety. And that's how the cycle closes. You take revenge on the day, and the next day hands you the receipt. Practical application. If everything you enjoy is pushed to the night, your brain will fight sleep. That's why the solution doesn't start with, I'll go to bed earlier. It starts much earlier. The first rule is reclaiming control during the day. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be perfect. 30 minutes. 1 hour? A space you choose, without guilt, without having to justify it. When your day has at least one moment that feels like it's truly yours, the night stops being an escape. The second rule is to stop using the night as a reward. You can't jump from constant stimulation straight into bed and expect your mind to shut off. You need closure, something simple that marks the end of the day, a transition, not to fall asleep faster, but to tell your brain, You don't have to resist anymore. When the day ends properly, the night stops being revenge and becomes rest again. Common mistake. The most common mistake is thinking the problem is a lack of discipline at night, believing everything can be fixed with more willpower at 11 or 12. But the discipline that's missing isn't at night. Nobody suddenly loses control at midnight. They lose it during the day, when you spend hours doing things you didn't choose, when you don't decide, when you're just complying. That's when the brain looks for compensation, and the night becomes the place where you try to recover what you felt was taken from you. That's why forcing yourself to sleep early without changing your day only creates more frustration. It's not that you fail at night. You arrive empty. Closing, final reflection. Tonight you can do the same thing again. Stay awake. Delay sleep. Tell yourself tomorrow will be different. Or you can ask yourself a more uncomfortable question. At what point during the day did I stop living like someone who chooses? Because if you want to sleep better, don't start with the bed. Start with how you use your waking hours. When the day becomes yours again, the night stops being revenge and rest stops being a fight. Want to go deeper? There's a way to understand this even better, through a scale that shows how much this affects your life. To study this, psychology doesn't rely on opinions. It measures it. There's a tool called the Bedtime Procrastination Scale. It's a psychological scale used in real research. It doesn't ask if you have insomnia. It doesn't ask if external factors ruin your sleep. It asks something more uncomfortable. Do you go to bed later than you planned? Do you know you should sleep but choose to stay awake? Do you delay sleep even when you know it will hurt you the next day? Simple questions. But when they repeat, they reveal a pattern. The scale shows something crucial. This isn't lack of information. It's not ignorance about rest. It's a repeated decision. And when people score high on this scale, studies find the same results again and again. Lower sleep quality, worse concentration, more irritability, higher stress and anxiety, not because they're broken, but because they're exhausted and feel little control during the day. That's why this isn't fixed with sleep tips. It's fixed by understanding why you don't want to sleep. Mini test: do you procrastinate sleep? Ask yourself these questions. Answer them mentally with yes or no. Do you go to bed later than you planned, even though you knew early on what time you should sleep? Do you know sleeping less will affect you tomorrow, but you still choose to stay awake? When bedtime comes, do you get easily distracted by your phone, videos, or series? Do you think, just 5 more minutes, and that time always stretches longer? Do you feel like the night is the only part of the day that truly belongs to you? If you answered yes to several of these, it's not a coincidence. It's not lack of information. It's not that you don't know sleep matters. It's sleep procrastination. And science shows that the higher you score in this pattern, the more likely you are to have less focus, worse mood, and more stress the next day. Not because you're broken, but because you've been running on autopilot for too long. If you want to go one step further, these questions aren't just examples. They're part of a real psychological scale used in scientific research. It's called the Bedtime Procrastination Scale. These items are designed to measure whether you consciously delay sleep, even when you know it affects you. This isn't an internet quiz. This isn't opinion. It's how science measures this pattern. And understanding it is the first step to stop fighting the night and start reclaiming control during the day. If you like this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. And if you have any questions or a topic you'd like us to talk about, leave it in the comments. Now take a few minutes and think, what didn't I do today that I could have done? And how could I make that small change tomorrow?